Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by John Boy Media. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. We got a jam-packed episode. We got a lot of mailbag and voicemail questions. We're obviously going to talk about Daniel Jones and the greatest of all time returning, a little special quarterback we may know of, never miss. We'll talk about him. Justin, what's going on, my man? We're in first place. We are in first place. The Eagles lost. We have the tiebreaker. We are a first place podcast. How are you doing, man?
Hello, Bobby Skinner. I just realized I'm wearing a shirt that is tough on the eyes for the YouTube crowd because there's lines in this shirt. So if I move back and forth, it looks like there are no lines. It's just red. So it's messing with my mind as I'm talking. It'll probably mess up with yours as you look at me. I'm doing well. We are in first place. Still a little anxious about Daniel Jones, but also not as anxious because we still don't know a ton. But first place pod, first place Giants. I love it. I'm in a good place.
Yeah, man. I mean, the last month has been positive, which is nice, man. I mean, it's been a lot more enjoyable, and I've probably never been more negative after a game with this podcast with that Bucks game, and then ever since it's been all positive vibes. So
hey, but who said it? Who said it on? I'm not sure if I said it on the podcast because that would be a bold take. Because sometimes you feel more courageous on social media. But I had a very calming tone after that Bucks game. And then it led me to tweet on November 11th that in 3 weeks, the Giants are going to be in first place. And lo and behold, the writing was on the wall. You haters like you didn't see it, Bobby Skinner. Haters like you, losers like, no, that's too far. It's too far. I'm sorry.
We are a winners win podcast.
First place.
Yeah, we got a lot to get to. Before we get into that, Justin, this episode was brought to us by some lovely gentlemen. We got Mr. Chris on Twitter. You know him. He's been supporting since literally day one.
Yep.
Luciano Fraioli.
You
want to know what his nationality is?
Spanish.
Nope, he's actually Norwegian. Just Anthony. No last name there. What's going on, Anthony? We got Alex Casanova. It's a Carrie Underwood song, like Cowboy Casanova or something.
Yes.
What does Casanova mean?
I couldn't tell you on the top of my head. It's one of those words that you think you know what it means, but then when somebody asks you for a definition, you could tie Casanova.
I'm looking up the definition.
It's a record machine. We're gonna get demonetized.
I can't stand Carrie Underwood. A man known for seducing women and having many lovers. Women were terribly charmed by him. Oh.
I didn't know the definition because that couldn't be me.
Alex the Casanova. Daniel Bliss. Ignorance is bliss. Daniel's pretty ignorant.
What are these great last names? I love it.
I don't know. It's almost like they're making it up. Do you remember when we first started Patreon, we weren't very happy with the numbers? And we're like, all right, to promote it because it was the off season, and it's like we weren't gaining new listeners at that time. And remember, we were like, all right, we're just gonna start making up one name every podcast to say join Patreon, so people will join.
I also had a random thought.
We were using famous people's names too. I can't remember what they were. Do you remember?
One of them was Shania. No, but do you remember over the off season, in order to, I think, get reviews and whoever wins a shirt, I picked names out of a toilet.
Yes, I do remember that was funny. Off-season Talking Giants is way more fun. I'm just going to be real with you guys. Peter Giglinski.
Oh, boy.
And I'm not even trying to mess around right now. Gingleski.
Gigaleski. That's my guess. Gingaleski. That's my guess.
And then Steve Brown.
That's an easy one.
Stevie Brown. How about that?
Former Giant great. After I think it was Will Hill. He didn't pay his child support and he was doing some marijuana. And then I think Stevie Brown came in after that.
It's really gonna bother me to know if I can't remember that fake name that we were using, and we kept on using like famous versions of it. It's like, wow, that's crazy.
It's tough.
All right. Those who are these Cracker Jacks?
Oh, Cracker Jacks. We're thinking of different adjectives or nouns every week. These wonderful people went on to patreon.com/Talking Giants. For $2 a month, they gave their support and they gave their parts of themselves to us to see the shows live as we record them. They get access to the podcast. Them, they get access to some shirt raffles. Chris Mickle just won a shirt. Who was the second person that won a shirt?
Satoshi Guacamoto, our favorite avocado.
Yeah, he likes me, doesn't really like you all that.
You listen to the first 8 minutes of the show and you got like, these guys are just weirdos.
It's
like they're talking about fake names and listeners that are, avocados.
Yeah.
Do you have the issue of you always want to call an avocado guacamole? Because I have that issue.
Yes. No, I think it's a Mandela effect issue. But those wonderful people, they went to patreon.com/
Mandela effect guy. See, now and we're a Mandela effect. All right, let's get through this because we are a Giants podcast.
Patreon.com/ Talking Giants. We recently just reached 100 patrons. So thank you. I think it's kind of crazy that, in relatively a losing season, it's been a winning month, but it's been a losing season. The fact that over 100 of you want to give support in that kind of way where you're giving us even a penny is kind of cool. So thank you. Let's continue to grow it even more. Bobby Skinner, we got a lot of things to get to.
Don't talk to me. Talk to Steve from Blue's Clues.
Mail time.
Mail time. The mail's here. Come on. Bye, guys. Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
All right, thanks, Steve from Blue's Clues. Justin, let's get to the mail.
First question is coming from Gazman.
Superstar.
Gazman Superstar at GM Superstar 2. When Alex Tanney throws us to the Super Bowl, will we trade Daniel? Hashtag 100%. Hashtag perfect.
There's one more question paired with that, Justin.
And one more question that is paired with that is Mr. Brownstone, friend of the program. Remember when people thought we would have a top 3 pick in the draft and people wanted to draft a quarterback? Now we're in first place and praying Jones can play. Suck it, losers. Hashtags 9 and 7 on the table.
9 and 7 is not out of the table right now. Let's talk about the Daniel Jones injury. It seems like he's going to miss Seattle for sure. Everything points that way.
Yeah,
they're bringing Alex Tanney back in. Although we were talking about how teams aren't using, having a quarantine QB. It seems like that's what Alex Tanney's role actually will be. So you have Tanney. They're bringing in Joe Webb. So there's an idea that he will be used as a scout team QB as we start to face some of these mobile quarterbacks.
Oh,
and Kyler and Lamar. Yeah. He won't be in time to, scout for Russell Wilson. So, but anyways, Daniel Jones is going to miss this Seahawks game, and we'll get more into the Seahawks game on the Friday episode. But, it sucks, and I hope he's back for Arizona, even if he's not 100% healthy. I know everyone says, we got to get him 100% healthy. That's not how football works. That's not how athletes work. That's not how Daniel Jones works in particular. He came back 2 weeks after a broken collarbone at Duke and was practicing and throwing the ball. If he is able to go, he will play against Arizona. It's not like last year where we were out of the hunt and, he may have been able to play that Miami game. And it's like, well, we're going to give Eli one last homestand. We're assuming a lot there. If he is able to play, he will play versus Arizona. I don't think he's playing this week, Seattle. But if he is 80%, 75%, and they're like, you're good to go, and just we're not going to, use read options as much, then he should play. He gives us the best option to win by a wide margin.
Yeah, I 100% agree. There are times where football players are not 100%, even if they may seem like they're 100%. Seasons long, bodies wear and tear. Daniel Jones, it's actually funny how Daniel Jones was talking. It's not funny. Nothing about this is funny. It makes me want to cry. But Daniel Jones was talking about during the bye week and how he approaches the bye week. He was saying this year, my main priority is to rest my body and to, get some bumps and bruises healed up and straightened out. So, that was his priority going into the bye week. So we don't even, you don't even know if there could be lingering things happening. We always hear about the, off-season surgery. We didn't even know that he was hurt. Those things come out all the time. So
we'll have that this year probably.
Yeah, odds are. So stinks. Al, you want to talk about Alex Tanney coming back? How excited you are?
Well, let's talk about the franchise QB for a little longer.
Okay. I'm excited. I like talking about the franchise leader in completion percentage.
I love Alex Tanner as much as anybody, but the first 6 minutes of this episode, I feel like we got to get a good 5 minutes of real takes before we
Here's a
start
question.
fawning over Alex Tanner.
Here's a question. Here's not a real take. Hey, but it's Joe Judge. You never know. Could Golden Tate be benched again because he's going to be used as the scout QB because he can run and throw the ball? Joe Judge.
Possibly. Jones, man, he played really well against Cincinnati, and it was, on third down when they were forced to move the ball downfield where he got 70% of his yards. He was 9 for 10 on third down. In fact, I've been doing the Daniel Jones third down videos for the last 6 weeks. I wish I did the whole year. Just an idea I've had, at the 6 week mark. The last 6 games, Justin, of Daniel Jones, he has been completed 77% of his passes on third down. I mean, on third down, the money down, he has been really damn good. And the last 3 games, I get he didn't finish the Bengals game, but it's been 3 games in a row with 0 turnovers. We talked about it. Can he figure out, start to master this Jason Garrett offense? And we both said, yeah. And we don't, we're not going to, I don't think we're going to spend too much time on Jason Garrett today. But, I mean, he's starting to figure it out. But you still see, the stick play, and I said this on the Monday episode, should be eliminated from the playbook. It's not worth the risk. It's too dangerous. It is our most dangerous play, and it's to get 5-6 yards. So adjust. Joe Judge, continue to put his hands on this offense. Daniel Jones is the best deep ball thrower in the NFL right now, passing rating wise.
Passer rating wise, everything is nuanced because he has also a very low temp numbers as well.
But it's been going up the last few weeks,
Sample size is important. And
he's delivering every time, every time he's delivering.
Yeah.
And the numbers, I wrote down. You know how I did so I'm updating the numbers on my whole, when they have 2 routes that go 15 plus yards, I did that whole study. So I updated it with this week. And this past week, on those throws, he has 4 for 6, 71 yards, 11.8 yards per attempt. And one of the misses was the Darius Slayton drop. Right. So it should have been 5 for 6 with 140 yards and possibly a touchdown with 20 yards per attempt.
Yeah.
Every time he throws the ball downfield, it is going well. And isn't that what all off season we talked about what we love about him? It's he is so accurate down the field. Danny Dimes isn't a nickname just because it sounds good. It's because he actually dimes the ball downfield.
I kind of hated that little cliche way that you ended that. I understand this is sports radio. You got to do it. So I had my friend. I want to get his Twitter handle right. Analytics_NYG. NY Giants stats and analytics. Anytime I think of something, because I'm not good enough at the computer program R to look at the R NFL next gen player data and to just put all of this on graphs and stuff. So I have my nice friends who are smart enough to do it for me. So I had the theory, and I talked about this on Sunday about how the Giants faced 21 third downs. Daniel Jones in the first half faced 11 alone. And I looked at, I had, what the Giants analytics stats and analytics page, what he made up for me. And then what I'm looking at right now is the Giants only 3 times on Sunday threw the ball further than 10 yards past the sticks. Actually, they had no attempts, and this is air yards between 10 yards and 20 yards past the sticks. Everything was 20 plus yards. One Slayton incompletion. The other one was the Evan Ingram attempt. And then I cannot remember the other one.
Another Evan Ingram one.
There was another Evan Ingram completion that was on the left sideline instead of the right sideline. So yes, you are correct. That was it. That was it. There was no passing attempts that went past the sticks 10 yards, only 20 plus yards. So even though we're not, again, this isn't a Garrett thing, Jones could be missing things and we don't know. But when an offense is facing cover 1 and man coverage 40% of the time, and when teams are blitzing at such a high rate, you would think taking more chances would make sense. And Bobby and I were just continuing to pile up data and examples of why Garrett makes us want to rip our hair out.
Every Garrett defense, we've been Mythbusters this year, and we're going to get to it later in the podcast, but we have been Mythbusters with Garrett. And kind of like I made that Garrett video last week, and someone was like, every time I had a rebuttal, you just kept on like killing it with your next point.
Yeah.
So,
and we
that's
don't
good.
mean to like intentionally like just crap on him and hate on him. You
No,
know,
I want
we're,
it to work out. Like
we're rooting for it.
we've
we're
won
rooting
3
for
games
it.
in a row. I'm not complaining. I'm very happy
Right.
with how this team has been playing.
Well, we can talk more about it because I feel like we have a good voicemail about it that we can talk a little bit more about it.
Okay. All right. Next question.
Next.
Oh, actually, Alex
question.
Tanney. It
Yeah.
it feels good to have him back. I know we joke, but I was legit happy to have him back. He's going to be a coach one day. It's just nice, you know. As many Alex Tanney jokes as we've made, we've made so many jokes that I'm actually attached to the guy. So I was very happy to see him back. He's coming home. The king returns.
I'm still very attached to that Dunleavy report that he put out about earlier in the year on Alex Tanney actually being very influential to Daniel Jones last year. And that's part of the reason why I thought that he was going to make the main 53 is because maybe they do have like this crazy attachment where Jones really does rely on Alex Tanney. So regardless, Jones is
I'd love to pick
progressed.
his brain one day.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a very unique, if Daniel Jones is the franchise QB, he has a very unique perspective.
Yep.
It's like I was in the QB room with the past and the future at the same time.
Yeah.
With the New York Giants. Like that has to be kind of crazy. So
yeah. All right. We ready for the next question?
Yep.
Hot dog at 0 hot dog 0. Dog as in DAWG. What happened to the Old Bridge guy? I am guessing he is referring to somebody who is very famous on the show who left a voicemail on a bridge, not the guy from Old Bridge.
This is Gordy. It's been a while. You guys are still doing great. I'm in Oneonta, New York, sitting here looking at the hills in my home. I'm wondering if Dave Gettleman did so well this year with free agency. I mean, we got some really good players, and the past years were so bad. I'm not a Gettleman fan. I'm wondering if maybe this year the reason that was so good, the free agency, had to do with Joe Judge. And he's the man. All right. Just wondering your thoughts on that. Take care. Bye-bye.
It's good to hear from Gordy. He was a fan favorite. Like if you're new to the show, I changed the voicemail recording. Like, hey, make sure tell us where you are, like not just city, like what you're actually doing. He's like, it was after a loss, and he's like, I'm on a bridge, thinking, and then he called back, and he's like, hey guys, I realized that my voicemail sounded kind of suicidal. So Gordy is a fan favorite of Talking Giants.
But he hasn't called back after that, though. This is the first time that he's calling back.
Did we offend Gordy? Like, you never know, you know. But Gordy is back, which is very glad to have. See. So, anyways, his question about Dave Gettleman, and we'll stick to, did Joe Judge have an impact on free agency? We have a bigger picture Dave Gettleman question next, which we'll get to. Free agency, you know, we try to not speculate on this stuff, but free agency, absolutely. I mean, we talked about it. It was almost a little worrisome. It's like every single free agent had a tie to this coaching staff. Every single one had a tie to the coaching staff. Whether it was the third string QB and Cooper Rush, or, you know, Cam Fleming, you know, Blake Martinez, Kyler Fackrell had, you know, connections to every single one had some sort of connection to the coaching staff. And it's like, oh, are they picking favorites? But in reality, I mean, this was as good as a free agent class as you could have for the New York Giants. So, yeah, I do think Joe Judge had a good amount to do with that.
But also, I feel like the Giants, and part of what has frustrated us about the Giants in years past, is that they have done exactly that kind of approach. Kareem Martin was a former Arizona guy, and we gave him a multi-year deal for a good chunk of change for a guy that we never heard of. Antoine Bethea was a former Arizona guy. Marcus Golden worked out, former James Betcher guy. So there was a lot of guys. Red Ellison was a former Pat Shurmur guy. However, we signed Red Ellison when Ben McAdoo was here, so that doesn't necessarily apply. But we've made some moves in the past that are like, oh, this is just an Arizona, this is just a Betcher retread, this is just a Shurmur retread. When this year, you know, and then it's Joe Judge, oh, but it's worked out, so we like that approach. So I don't know if it's exactly Joe Judge, because the Giants have kind of done that formula before. But I also don't blame coaches who want their former players because they know the system.
But it's not a formula of just get players it's get players that can play good. Like I don't think it was just, oh, I know this guy, let's get him. I think it's like, hey, like this is why this player is good, and sound like and that's where Dave Gettleman comes into place, where it's like, all right, sell him to me, tell me why he would fit into the here, and it's not just simply nepotism of you played with this guy before.
So we could have a theory that, unlike former off seasons where it was Betcher and Shermer selling their former players to the general manager,
but Shermer really never got anybody.
Right, but it was so let's just stick with Betcher then, because Betcher got a lot of his guys.
Even with Betcher, though, his players were low contract players. So, like, I get that because there was a lot of air. Like,
but you're still investing in starters for that year. That's the thing. Where
Kareem
obviously
Martin was like, he was very Kareem Martin and Mora were very like, I mean, those were like backup contracts they got.
They still signed him to a 3-year deal, Bobby. They signed Kareem Martin to a decent chunk of change to do little to nothing.
The guaranteed money.
They signed him to I can't tell you the contract on the back of my hand, but they signed him to a multi-year deal to do little to nothing. So, but my overall point, and this is how I'm trying to spin it pro Joe Judge here. My overall point is, maybe the coaches do have a little bit more control than we think, because James Betcher is pitching bad players. Joe Judge is pitching good players to the general manager. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, and you think about Arizona, like, we didn't get their best player. We honestly got like the worst players on their roster,
Right.
Where it's like, Blake Martinez was, like the main player for that Green Bay Packers. Actually, Darius Smith probably was the main player,
Yeah.
but Wall Graham was there. And then Ebner was obviously brought over for special teams. I mean, we're not going to go through the whole free agency list, but he free agency was knocked out of the park. Even Cam Fleming, who was the one free agency pickup where you're like, it's like, well, he wasn't even brought in to start. Like, he was brought in to be the backup tackle, which, I mean, for a guy who was brought in to be a backup tackle, like Cam Fleming isn't playing below my expectations. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
So like, even like the bad one, it kind of makes sense, even though I'm going to tie it to Dallas. Anything that has to do with Dallas stinks.
Gordy, it was great to hear from you. I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you're calling back. I'm glad you're still enjoying the show. Glad you're enjoying the Giants. Bobby, we ready to move on?
Yeah, next question.
We have a mailbag question from Topher Pete. Topher Pete 629.
My guy.
When the Giants, not if, when the Giants win the division, does Gettleman keep his job? Is his job already safe? This has been a complaint since he has been here. The moves he made and guys he drafted are working out. Just want to hear your guys' explanation on why or why not. Bobby, I also believe we have a voicemail to pair with this.
Hey guys, it is Matt. I'm in Connecticut and I'm calling from, I guess, my basement, which is my office. First of all,
Victory!
Secondly, my question was, at this point, can we agree that Dave Gettleman has no more talk of being fired in the offseason? I mean, considering his draft class this year was awesome and all the free agent signings have been far better than anyone expected, I think it's time to let him off the hook. Thanks. Bye.
Now, Justin, I was on the fire Gettleman train like not too long ago, and I'm not like a quick to like pull the trigger. Like I'm usually a pretty patient person. But John Mara did say, one, we want to be playing meaningful games in December, but let's even throw that out. Even though we are in first place, it is because the division sucks. The second half of the season, we have been 3-0. If we can win 2 more, that's 5-3 in the last 8 games. And this is the only thing I think Dave Gettleman needs to say to John Mara is, did you bring me back? Yes. You saw what I've done and you brought me back. Yes. What have I done since you made the decision? I have knocked everything out of the park. Everything. We just talked about the free agency. The draft, Thomas has been really good lately. McKinney, you can't judge yet. Parrott for a 3rd-round pick has been awesome, especially he was supposed to be a project. Darnay Holmes. I mean, Darnay Holmes just had his best game for the New York Giants. A 4th-round pick. We may have our nickel corner.
Yeah.
Shane Lemieux is starting. And he's been like, he's getting better every week. And he's like, I thought he had his best game this past, maybe best game passing once. There's some stuff there. Hell, our 6th and 7th rounders are impacting the team.
Nick Gates was undrafted.
Yeah. So the other side of that, though, is like, okay, some of the 2018 decisions are looming larger. Like, hey, if we were going to trade JPP to sign, to trade for Ogletree, it's like, well, we could use JPP right now, So, but honestly, that's all he has to do, though. All he has to do is go into that office and tell John Mara, look what I've done. Look, you made a decision. What has happened since that decision?
I think beating a team above 500 needs to happen. It needs to happen towards the second half of this season. I've done some wild stat digging today, and what I found from Football Outsiders based off of their defense value over average measurement metric is that the Giants have faced the toughest number one competition in the NFL on the offensive side of the ball. Giants offense has faced the toughest competition in the NFL on the offensive side of the ball, but the Giants defense has faced the easiest competition in the National Football League. Yes, we've played the Bucs. Yes, we've played the Rams. Yes, we played Dallas when they were good. But the overall point of how Football Outsiders measures strength of schedule is they basically average all of the DVOA ratings of the offenses together. And when you include how bad Washington has been, how bad Philly has been, how bad the Bears offense is, when you include all of those games kind of together, 4, 5, and 6 games is against the Bengals. And that's just on the top of my head. 6 out of the 11 games that we've played were against very subpar offenses. You also have to take that into account. And we didn't win a single game of a team that is above 500. We've played very well, and I have respected the hell out of the Giants playing tooth and nail to teams like the Rams, teams like the Bucs, etc. But we do need to win a game. We do need to win a game against a team that is above 500. We do.
Yeah. A few weeks ago, my answer was Daniel Jones has to play extremely well down the stretch. The touchdown to interception ratio bothers me so much. Like, that needs to be fixed.
Which, by the way, Daniel Jones is playing well. And I think, Bobby, you agree with this because we've been talking about this. Daniel Jones is playing well, but he is still not putting up like starting caliber numbers in the NFL. His EPA has been above average, but the production,
he's putting together really good film, though.
Yeah, but also the production that you are expecting out of an NFL passing offense is just not there. It's not.
We're also not letting him, though.
Correct, and that's a Garrett problem.
Yeah,
but they're not going to think of it that way. I hope they do, but they're not going to think of it that way.
Yeah.
Beat a team above 500.
I agree. I'm trying not to get lost in the moment. But a thing I said is like at some point you have to judge the record, and it's like, well, now we're starting to win games. I don't know. I'm happy right now. So as of now, I'm saying he knocked 2020 out of the park.
Yeah,
and I'm cool with that. So.
If they get to 6 wins, if you were to tell us that the Giants' finishing record in 2020 at the start of the year was 6-10, I think we would take that. I think we would, and we would be like, okay. Now, I don't know. I think maybe some people would be split on whether to bring back Gettleman or not. But if you sprinkle in 2 wins at the worst through the end of this season, because I will tell you what, I know the Browns are a better team. I feel like that loss would sting, and losing to the Cardinals would sting, because those are 2 teams that you feel that you can beat even though they're above 500. And then definitely a loss to the Cowboys would stink. Like that.
Oh, yeah. A Week 17 Cowboys.
That would just absolutely stink.
Yeah, we'd have to miss the playoffs.
Yes.
We'd have to miss the playoffs, and we'd have to feel bad.
Right.
We couldn't have this feeling right now. So,
right.
Like I said, that's why you make those decisions. That's, you don't make those decisions in season for the most part.
What do we have next? We
have a voicemail from Eric in Naples who calls after the game and just basically gives us like a hype speech.
He's drunk.
New York Giants. It is Eric in Naples. Every time I call right after the game. 7 beers in, 1917. Here's what I'm going to say. Go G-Men. Really worried about Daniel Jones. Don't know how serious the injury is. My father is an alumni of the University of Texas.
So I knew Colt would come through in the end, and he did. I don't know what the heck happened to Darius Slayton in this game, but he did nothing. But here's what I'm going to say. This is a game where when you've got a guy like Bobby who tracks film incredibly, and you got a guy like...
It's going to break my heart.
Holy, I'm forgetting names here.
Just forgets my name.
You got a guy like Justin who does analytics well. You throw out all of that this game because this is a bull trash game where we dominate the game. We give up 130 yards offense, and we barely win 19-17. So there are plenty of things to look at and go, you know what? We're terrible. But it's a win. It's 3 in a row. We're 4-7. We have a chance to have a lead in the division. So let's go positive. New York Giants, Leonard Williams, 1 sack, 1 fumble recovery, and the Gallmanites dominate. I'm 7 beers in. I got the number to the waitress at the sports bar. Let's rock and roll. On to Seattle. Peace.
On to Seattle. Peace. I love it. He gets me hyped up.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm hyped too, Eric. We just talked about Dave Gettleman, which is like very serious. I'm hyped back up. Let's go, Big Blue. Let's murder Seattle. Let's go in. If you see a Seahawk in the sky this week, shoot it out of the sky. Let's go, Big Blue.
Next question. Is from Carlos at Arlos Lugo. Everyone agrees that Judge, and I believe he's saying Dave DeGuglielmo.
DeGuglielmo.
DeGuge. Thought it was DeGuglielmo.
No, it's Coach Googe, but it's DeGuglielmo.
Oh, whatever. Everyone agrees that Judge and Coach Googe taking over the offensive line is responsible for the incredible shift in both run blocking and pass pro. But what specifically is being done differently to account for so much improvement in such a short time? As tape guys, what changes stand out on film? Bobby, I'm letting you run with it.
Well, first, let's ask you this. Were you worried that we may have ran with the Joe Judge took over the O-line narrative and that it was not as impactful as maybe we thought before this game?
No.
I was like, is that just a media talking point and we just ran with it because it sounded awesome? I was worried about that, but the offensive line looked a lot better. I mean, Thomas, they're really just like teaching him to protect the inside, like, and won't get technical, but it's just like, hey, be ready for them to attack you inside, and that's what he's done. He's athletic enough to where when they do go around the edge, he's able to play well. In this past game, man, I get it was against the Bengals, but Carl Lawson's a good football player, and it was the most calm and smooth he looked. He was ready for everything. His feet were calm, his hands were calm, and he just looked very calm against a good player in Carl Lawson. And then when Carl Lawson wasn't in, it was just dominant, like stalemate kind of stuff. With Gates, I do think Gates is just kind of getting better. I don't know. Like I don't know what, how there's like an argument about their technique. I don't know what that technique was. I do think there is an emphasis on finding work. If you saw Lemieux on one play this week where he had nobody to block in the pass game, he went and just going and looking for guys.
Gates had a few pancakes.
A few. He had 6, dude. I was getting so excited watching him. And there was a couple more where it was debatable if he did get some pancakes.
Quick question about Gates.
They're identifying the mic in the run game, and they were staying on double teams longer into linebackers. It's a bunch of little stuff, and it's working really well.
Quick question about Gates. Don't have to go too far deep into it. At this rate, do you think he is progressing enough to become an above average starting center for the Giants, or would you be totally okay if the Giants went and got a center for next year and moved Gates to guard?
I would be okay with that because Gates probably be a little more guard is just easier than center. Guard's the easiest position on the offensive line, but he's already an above average center. And honestly, the Pittsburgh game was bad. He was fine versus Chicago. There was, I think, the first Washington game. I can't remember. I think it was the first Washington game. He had some bad plays. He has been a good center for the New York Giants all year. He gets the most pancakes every game. He's solid he doesn't get a ton of one-on-ones in the pass game, but he's always looking for work. He's not just sitting there with a thumb up his ass like some centers that have been on the team. He's consistent. He moves guys in the run game. He is an above average center. And I got so mad when PFF was ranking him bad, and I will never use PFF grades. People were like, well, they're saying he's the 30th center in the NFL. If he's the 30th center in the NFL, the center position is in great hands with the NFL right now. He is an above average center. Like I said, I'm not going and watching every center game and every center play. But, I watched Spencer Pulley and Halapio. I didn't even hate Halapio. For because I kind of just I feel like I had the right expectations for him. He has a big upgrade over them, and he's an alpha male.
There you go. I love it. Any other thoughts on the O-line? Because we have
this Will Hernandez, Shane Lemieux. Shane Lemieux is progressing every week, but Will Hernandez is good when he plays, and well, we got a question about free agency later. I think I'm going to bring up some of those points later. So.
Yes. But one of the other questions we touched on we touched on Fleming. I think we even have a Fleming. We have a Fleming question in a little bit too, which will lead us to a Parrott Fleming conversation. But Paul Nones, hope I said it right, Paul. I'm sorry if I said it wrong again. Paul Nones wants us to rank the tackles from this draft class now that AT has turned the corner.
If we're going just still by the whole season, I would go. Becton makes it hard because of the injury, but say he's not injured, you go Becton, Wills, Thomas. If you're going by the whole year, if you're going by just the last month,
and a lot of people would want you to include Wirfs into that, even though he's right tackle.
I don't watch Wirfs, and I saw people that don't watch all these tackles were not trashing Thomas today, but film guys were talking bad about Thomas, and it's they're clearly just going off the PFF grades. So I don't want to be that guy who talks about players I don't watch. So talking about the three. Now, I honestly would say Becton 3, and Thomas has been consistently better than Wills in the run game all year. Even when Thomas was struggling, he's been better than Wills in the run game. But the fact that Wills has been consistent in the pass game, I'm still going to pit Wills 1, Thomas right behind there 2, and then Becton. That's just for the last month. If we're going by whole body of work, I would go Becton, Wills, and then Thomas, because Becton's been good. And he's a mauler in the run game. But Wills is the most confident and consistent out of all of them.
But I think some may argue that Thomas could have a higher ceiling because Wills already is kind of at his ceiling.
Wills is tapped out. And that, I know we've said this a million times on the podcast. That's what frustrated me with the whole Thomas is the most pro ready, but he has he has a low ceiling. I was like, look at these guys' pros and cons and tell me which one is more room for upgrade. Will's pros where he's his technique is perfect, but he doesn't really maul in the run. Will's, to me, his technique was good, and even then he had worse production than Thomas in college. So that's why I was Thomas over Wills. Although I did like Wills a lot. I like Becton a lot. Wirfs I didn't like a lot, and I'm looking dumb on that. Or at least I am from what I hear from people. Where am I going with this?
Where are you going with this? And that's fun. That's where you're going.
You glitched out there, so I don't even know what you said. So I still don't know where we're going.
Andrew Thomas has been getting better, and that's fun.
That's fun.
We have a voicemail question from Dan in Staten Island.
And I wrote down Cam Fleming, but I don't feel like this is about Cam Fleming when I'm looking at the transcripts. What is going on here? Oh, that's why, because that voicemail is from over a week ago. Here's the real question from Dan from Staten Island.
Hey, Talking Giants. It's Dan from Staten Island, New York. Just a little follow-up. For the offensive line, do you guys think that maybe it's time to bench Cam Fleming? I think I already asked you this question weeks ago, but back then I think you said that Matt Perk's not ready. We are now past week 12, and now I kind of think he is ready, solely because Cam Fleming just keeps messing up left and right, and I don't think Matt Perk's going to mess up as much. He might get a penalty here and there, but not as often as Fleming. because then also if we do that, take him out, and then maybe, just maybe, we can take out Zeitler, because I don't know how good Zeitler's doing this year, but I know Lemieux's doing great. You guys buff him up a lot, like with compliments and everything. So I love to see that, and then that would also help out Will Hernandez not being benched. But I don't know. It's just a thought. Go Giants.
I want to focus mostly on the Cam Fleming point there. I've been on the hey, let's start Matt Parrott, and then Matt Parrott got COVID, and it seems like these guys are kind of still I don't know anything about Corona. I don't have it. I don't, I haven't had it.
COVID
supposedly,
fog.
Yeah, supposedly that's kind of a real thing. So can Matt Parrott come back and just start a full game? Supposedly Gano was having a fog from it, and he's only doing the kicks. So I mean, Parrott, if we're just going off of if you just eliminate COVID, yeah, I think it would be time for Parrott to start for me.
I agree. If it's we thought Shane Lemieux was going to be a total project, even more than Parrott. And Parrott was actually getting playing time, and he was looking okay, and he was looking decent. If Matt Parrott can be better than Fleming in the run game, and maybe a little bit worse and just the same as Cam Fleming is in pass pro, start Matt Parrott.
Yeah,
100%.
I'm right there with you. Hopefully he can get better and from whatever the COVID stuff
stinks.
All right.
Stinks because we talk about these guys being world-class athletes, but also at the same time they are human beings. Jeff Boyd at the Boyd Wonder.
Boyd.
If the season were to end today, what position would be the best to fill if there's only enough money for one? Premier wide receiver, cornerback, guessing cornerback 2, edge, or a different one?
So he's talking about getting a premier player. So this is more of a hypothetical than it is a realistic. A premier edge I feel would put this defense on the next level, but then you get a premier corner, and it's well, then we don't need the edge, and we still do this rotation and get some guys, that can rush the passer. And then premier wide receivers, we need to get that wide receiver for Daniel Jones. So what I'll say is I trust Patrick Graham, get Daniel Jones as wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree. I would rather, in a way, I think I'm more okay with developing an edge rusher that we can have for a long time. The next great Giants pass rusher. I am very much okay with developing that guy if it takes him a year or two to really get, his sea legs under him. And this is not a guy we're not talking about drafting Lorenzo Carter in the 3rd round or the 2nd round or O'Shane Zimenez in the 3rd round and them playing 45% of the snaps and getting 3 sacks their rookie year. If you draft a top-tier edge rusher in this year's draft, he's playing the majority of the snaps, and maybe he's getting you 5-6 sacks. That would be the hope. That would be a hopeful expectation. So he's still producing, even though he wouldn't be considered a top-tier edge rusher, and he can develop into that. I think getting Daniel Jones a premier wide receiver is the most important need that this team has heading into this offseason, because this Giants offense is still a below average offense. They are getting there in terms of becoming average. They are still a relatively bad offense. And I'm not a hater. I'm just a guy I'm trying to remind you all that yes, we're watching this team, we're appreciating the improvements, but still, even when they're performing well, they are still not producing like an NFL offense should. And getting a wide receiver in here that can just ball out and that can ball out from day one, that doesn't need a year or two to develop, would be the most beneficial thing that this team can do.
I don't think Jason Garrett knows how to function without a top wide receiver. I mean, you think about how that year changed when they got Amari Cooper. He had Dez Bryant for all those years. Even Terrell Owens.
Oh, they were bad. That's a great point. They were bad without Amari Cooper. Terrible.
I just don't think he knows how to operate without that top receiver. That's why it's when people are like the Air Coryell, it's we literally run the opposite of the Air Coryell.
Yeah, it's not looking deep and then coming back. It's the opposite. It's almost like a West Coast.
Nah, it's almost like a wing tee.
Oh yeah, because we're running because we keep on lining up and rushing formations. 13 personnel. Oh my god.
All right. Next we got a voicemail from Zach in Virginia.
Hey guys, this is Zach from Chesapeake, Virginia. I'm calling from my house. I'm curious, our current roster has a couple holes that need to be filled for next year, but what spots do you anticipate having to address due to departing free agents? Or do you think we're going to be able to retain most of the key players whose contracts expire after this year? Thanks, guys. Go Big Blue.
So I was thinking about this question. Think about the possible free agents. Say you lose Leonard or Dalvin. Well, you got BJ Hill there. You got Austin Johnson. You got RJ McIntosh, who I like, and I actually think he may be on the roster because they might move on from one of those guys. You move on from Kevin Zeitler. Well, now you got Shane Lemieux and Will Hernandez. You move on from Logan Ryan. You can see Xavier McKinney filling into that role. Really, any of the guys who can move on from this year, we kind of have the replacement. Doesn't mean you're going to be playing at the same level, but it's like, all right, this guy comes in and fills in at that spot. Doesn't mean I want to move on from any of those guys because depth is important, and those guys have all been playmakers. Kevin Zeitler's not a playmaker, but he's really good. So there's not like a if we lose this guy, we have this huge hole. You know what I mean?
I will say, and this is somebody that we didn't really give credit to. Yeah, that'll be a big hole. But Joseph in the Patreon chat right now, we didn't give this guy credit on Sunday, really, because I think we've just been recognizing the brilliance of him and covering this spot up. But Joe in the Patreon chat said we already have a cornerback too. And if you think about it, if we lose, I would say
we have a question about him later, though.
We have a question, but I would say losing Isaac Yiadom or Ryan Lewis, that would kind of be, they're at least very, very good depth pieces at this point. But
I'm not worried about losing those guys.
Hey, but you mentioned other counter arguments for why it would be manageable to lose some other pieces and more important pieces. But we'll talk about.
But you wouldn't lose them. You wouldn't lose Yiadom without like having someone that you feel can be an upgrade there and not spend money.
Absolutely. But
like we can spend $2 million and be like, we upgraded a cornerback too.
No, absolutely. But we'll save, if we have a question about that, I'll save some of my thoughts for that then. So we
research Rick in the chat says Austin Johnson, the free agent 2021. But like you could see him coming back on another like $1 million deal, you know?
Yes. He's actually been good, which is I ripped him apart. I didn't want to see him ever again after that Bears game. After that Bears game where he was on the field and he allowed basically Montgomery and Cohen to just run right by him on that final offensive possession, I was like, I'm done. What is he doing? But he's actually been really good.
When I went to go watch the defensive film this morning, so I popped it on and I accidentally went to the third quarter instead of the first quarter first. And then I was like, is Austin Johnson and BJ Hill the first defensive tackles playing in this game? What the hell is going on? And then I realized it was the third quarter. But I was like, are you serious right now, Patrick Graham?
All right, we're gonna have to hustle through the last parts of these questions. Tim Coffey. Okay, we keep talking about the signing of Tommy, Ryan, and Lion O. I have no idea who Tomlinson.
It took me a second. Tomlinson
Logan
and
Ryan. And Leonard. Okay. That's what I thought. But with his 5th-year option coming up, do we think about signing him long-term now or wait for the new year and an assumed higher cap? His 5th year is about $7 million. Whose 5th-year option is he talking
Peppers.
about?
He's talking about Peppers. I use context clues.
Oh.
I think Peppers will be extended in the offseason.
Yeah.
It would make sense. He wants to be here. We should want him to be here. Peppers is my favorite player on the defense. Makes plays every single week in different ways.
I think he's earned it.
Oh, yeah. Peppers needs to be back. Should I say it?
Are you going to say he's your favorite player on the Giants?
No, I'm saying he's so much better than Landon Collins.
Oh, well, remember there was a guy that was ripping me apart over the summer because I said that. And maybe I
thought that last year too, by the way. But people were, Man, when I believe in a guy, I believe in a guy. And Peppers is one of those guys. Gates was one of those guys.
You're just really pointing out how smart you are. That's what you're doing right now.
Yeah, and I ignore the times I'm wrong.
We have a Dexter Lawrence voicemail.
What's up, guys? Matt Gilroy here, Patreon member calling from New Hampshire. First time caller, big fan. Got a question about Dexter Lawrence. Haven't heard his name pop up too much. Kind of been all Leo talk, all Dalvin talk. You know, what are we expecting from him, considering Dalvin might be on the way out next year? Haven't heard much about him. You guys are watching the film. How should we feel about him? Thanks, guys.
Good question. Dex makes those plays. Like, he makes a couple good plays a game, you know. He's not the overall dominant force, but also, like, there's some players where it's like, hey, like, you know, at certain positions, like, year 3 is when we really judge you. I mean, look at Dalvin. He didn't pop off until year 3. So Dex is playing good. He's not playing great. He's not like, oh, this guy's dominant. Supposedly Quentin Williams is like dominant for the Jets this year, which, you know, that would be a flip of the two, where it's like going into this year, you'd be like, oh, Dexter Lawrence better than Quentin by a big time. So he's been good. He's been solid. He's not blowing you away. He's not like wowing you, but I think he's been solid for the role he's in. And I think next year is the year to really expect him to like ball out.
Yeah, I mean, it's him and Tomlinson that are basically, it's a flip of the coin who may be getting more snaps than any given week. Research Rick, who absolutely I've been, especially this week, he's been putting out so much good information. So thank you. It's his Twitter is at SCLT_NY, NYG fan in Charlotte. Dexter Lawrence played 11 out of the 8 out of the 11 third down snaps versus Cincinnati. So it's also one of those things. If you're looking at Dexter Lawrence's production in terms of his stat sheet, if you're not playing on a lot of third downs, and if it's like, whoa, it's surprising that you're playing most of the third down snaps, then there's a good chance that you may not get a lot of pressures. There's a chance you may not get a lot of QB hits. There's a chance you may not get a lot of sacks. But and clearly somebody's liking Dexter Lawrence, and typically people that don't like Giants players at Pro Football Focus, he's the highest graded Giants player on the defense. If you put any kind of stock into that, sure. He's been filling his holes. That's one of the main things. Okay. I think what this defensive line has done well is they filled their gaps, they filled their holes. So guys like Blake Martinez, gaps,
not hole. When you say filling their holes, it just
yikes.
I mean, that's what she said. You know what you're doing. I know you do.
That's what she said. Yikes. I'm glad I did it. When they fill their holes, when they fill their gaps.
All right.
Blake Martinez is able to insert himself into that hole.
Thanks, voicemail.
Talking Giants, what's up? My name's Joe Moya. I'm calling from Hoboken, New Jersey.
Woo!
Got a question for you guys. In my opinion, this team's going to go as far as our worst player is going to take us. I'm thinking Devontae Downs out of position early in the season. I'm thinking Ryan Lewis burnt toast over the top late in the game versus Dallas. And I'm going to say it. There's been a lot of talk about our cornerback 2 position this year. I'm going to say it. I think Yadam is not our worst player. I think he's played well the last 3 weeks. He gives up that touchdown last week. You can look at the tape. Gives up a catch on a little dig route. But he has played well. I'm curious what you guys think about him. And I really enjoy your guys' content. In the age of a fragmented market for content, you guys do a really good job. Keep it up.
Wow, that was very deep.
Cut this out of the podcast. This guy, I don't like this guy. I think he's an idiot.
Whoa, who?
This guy who called in. Cut this out. Don't leave this in the podcast.
The fragmented market?
No, I'm just kidding. He's in the chat. I wanted to scare you and be like, dude, you're trashing someone that's in the chat.
What are you doing?
No, I just wanted to mess with Justin. What's going on, Joseph, in the chat? Here's the thing. Yadam has been playing all right the past couple weeks.
He's actually under contract until 2021. Thank you, Research Rick. He just comes in clutch all the time. Actually under contract until the end of next year.
If he's not the worst player, then who is?
Devontae Downs. No.
But even then, it's like, and we'll talk about middle linebacker 2 in a second. Downs isn't playing a lot.
Right.
If Devontae Downs is playing like he was to start the season, I would agree.
But also, you kind of need somebody to be your worst player. Do you understand what I mean by that, though?
Yes, I get that.
And this is part Yadam, where he actually had some pass deflections this week. He made some nice plays this week. Now, against Seattle is going to be a very big test. Very big test. And we keep on alluding to things that we're going to talk about. And when we're already 55 minutes in, but we're going to be talking about Seattle. We'll even talk about it on Friday if we don't have time, but very big test. So this is going to be the biggest test that Yadam has had to face this year. But the brilliance of Patrick Graham is that you can afford to have a player that you don't want a bad player in your defense, but you can afford to have a player that's average or below average, because what Graham does, and Bobby, you could speak more to this, but I intentionally watched defensive film this week because I wanted to solely look at, because I can only look at one thing at a time because I'm stupid. What is Graham doing to disguise looks, to change looks, strive to drive? What is he doing? And, some things that I saw, he would turn cover 2 into cover 3. Where Bradbury would drop back, he would be close to the line of scrimmage. It would look like they're playing cover 2 and they were playing shallow. And then Bradbury would drop back, and the 2 safeties would also drop back. You have cover 3. How many times we see per game? You probably count maybe the times on one hand where you have a defensive lineman that's dropping back into coverage, a big boy, Dalvin Tomlinson, Dexter Lawrence. And in years past, you're like, what the hell is the defensive coordinator doing this for? But this year, it's legitimately throwing off a quarterback. It throws them off. And they're actually doing a good job getting out there. And then also one other note that I just want to bring that's tying in analytics a little bit. In my opinion, the reason why NFL offenses and quarterbacks that have played the Giants do not throw the ball deep down the field against us, and we have not allowed big explosive pass plays, it's because NFL quarterbacks, they're getting confused. They're confused and they don't know what they're looking at pre-snap. It changes post-snap, and then you want to be conservative, and you don't want to throw the ball deep, and you don't want to throw the ball downfield when you don't know what you're looking at. That's my big theory, and based off of my analytics and then my film study, what I found this week is that quarterbacks just don't know what's going on, which is good.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point. Is like I think finding a replacement for Yadam, and Yadam should be kept. I'm not saying to cut him in the offseason. But like, I'm not like, he's not doing anything to get me to be like, we don't need a corner. We shouldn't go get a cornerback too. So, I mean, I'm not mad at Yadam, but I mean, we were having the same conversation about Ryan Lewis, 2 months ago.
Yeah. We'll see after this weekend. It's a big game. Very, very big game, because he's either going to be lining up right next to Metcalf or Tyler Lockett and buckle up. So Paul Nonis is asking about middle linebacker 2. Thoughts on middle linebacker 2? Didn't see a lot of Tay Crowder, but I'm guessing he's getting eased back in.
Yeah, I think they're easing him back in. I mean, him, Downs, and Mayo basically played the same amount of snaps. And I know you pointed it out. And this is actually, hey, we pat ourselves on the back when we're right and ignore it when we're wrong. We called this before the game. It's like, I bet you with Kyler, with the outside linebacker depth issues, that they're going to be using like Crowder and Mayo like on the edge some, not necessarily to just rush the passer, but just to kind of fill that gap.
Yeah. He was good. Mayo was pretty good.
Crowder
in that
looks
role too.
Confident there. Downs kind of sucks wherever he is.
Is that the famous off-ball linebacker term that we always hear?
What about it?
But you know how we heard the term, and we were using the term off-ball linebacker during the draft process?
Yeah.
Was what David Mayo was playing, which is basically an interior linebacker that's lining up by the tackle. Is that what we mean by off-ball linebacker?
No, what that would mean is like when we were talking about Zach Bond, where it's like he could play both.
Okay.
And then Carl Banks says like,
what's an off-ball linebacker?
That's
like
when Carl Banks asked that, I was like, Carl, that's a great question, because it's
not a great question. It was a snarky question, trying to make fun of new age people who like new terms in football. Like,
Sorry,
is this a stack linebacker? It's like, Carl, it's just a scouting term to differentiate pass rushing outside linebackers who are just to differentiate between O'Shane Zimenez and Blake Martinez. That's what it's there. So you're not just calling them linebackers, Carl Banks.
Sorry, I'm biased. Carl Banks still
and
follows
by the
me.
way, Carl, I love Carl. I do. And he would admit it. He can be really snarky and condescending sometimes. Remember when I talked about Julian Love being like I did a video of like, hey, there's this rotating zone where you just change people's like cover, like you run a form of cover 3, but you got this guy playing this role. And Carl Banks is like, and I was using an example of Betcher. He's like, oh, this is Betcher. Let Patrick Graham do this. It's what Patrick Graham does like 10 times a week. So
I think Carl Banks learned, by the way, he has not interacted with anybody on Giants.
Well, he unfollowed me.
He's barely even tweeted about the Giants. So I think he's
unfollowed
learned.
me. He doesn't like me anymore.
I'm gonna ask him to be mean to me again, so then he can give me pity retweets again. I miss
love
that.
Carl. He can be really condescending sometimes.
He was mean to me, so then he gave me pity retweets. That's what I think it was. I don't think he actually genuinely enjoyed what I was tweeting. I think he's like, I was a real asshole to this kid, so I have to retweet him. Hey, but it helped me out. It got me like off the ground, kind of. So that was pretty cool.
Well, see, he did real retweets of me, which was like cool, and then he did like the condescending ones, and then opposite of like the reaction you got, where it's like, why don't you stop being mean, Carl? I fired back and be like, no, like I'm right on this, Carl. And he didn't like that.
We have a voicemail on Garrett we need to get to.
I love Carl Banks. It's so weird we're talking about like an all-time Giant like that, but that's what happens when you go into like media and stuff.
He's a good friend of ours.
Yeah, Carl. We're gonna get Carl on the show eventually, and I can't wait to talk to him about this. Like this is question number 1 for Carl. Like, how much do you enjoy dunking on the dummies like me and Justin? All right, love you, Carl. And I just closed out the voicemail.
Wow.
Talking Giants, what's up? My name's Joe Moya. I'm calling from Hoboken, New Jersey.
He's back.
Got a question for you guys. In my opinion, this team's going to go as far as our worst player is going to.
We already listened to this voicemail. Bobby.
I was like, oh, he left too. What am I doing?
We already listened to this voicemail. It's about Jason Garrett. It's our friend Liam.
I was like, did I make a joke about someone else being dumb and they're going to be offended?
No, Liam.
Here we go.
Hey guys, it's Liam calling from my bed, and I was just thinking,
from my bed.
This Seattle game could be the one game where Jason Garrett's conservative play calling style could actually benefit for a Giants victory. Here's why. We know that Daniel Jones has not benefited from Jason Garrett's play calling style because Daniel Jones has succeeded solely when he throws the ball 15 plus yards to the sidelines, and that's just a proven fact. But if Daniel Jones is out, which is a high possibility, I think that Colt McCoy's playing style really fits Jason Garrett's conservative play calling, because if we run the ball heavy and throw the short slants and the screen passes and the check downs, that actually could keep it will keep our offense on the field for the majority of the game, which keeps Russell Wilson off the field and keeps our defense fresh. And when our defense has been fresh, we have won games, and that's just plain simple. I think this is the one game where Jason Garrett's conservative play calling can actually benefit and cause Giants win. So I don't know. I'm excited. I'm not excited because I know Daniel Jones is probably going to be out. But all I'm saying is, don't rule out the possibility. I'm optimistic about this game. So, anyways, let's go Big Blue. Let's go win the freaking division. I mean, and after that, let's go win the Super Bowl, and let's go win the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Let's go Big Blue.
Love
Liam,
the energy.
This was a wonderful voicemail. I love the thought that went into this, and I love the theory because it was something that I thought of preseason as well. I was like, let's own the time of possession. Like how this Giants roster is kind of shaped is winning the time of possession, and with the weaker defense, not putting the defense out on the field as much as how we're going to win. So Liam hits the nail on the head in terms of how it works in theory. But this is where Liam is unfortunately very wrong. Very wrong, and this isn't meant to be mean, and you wouldn't think this is how football works, but how the Giants 2020 season is working is they are an above average team in time of possession per drive. The Giants are holding the ball and moving the ball, moving the ball, wait on that. They are holding the ball for an above average rate, but their yards per drive and their points per drive are still bottom quarter of the National Football League. Bottom quarter. And that overall, those 3 points, that is why I say that the Giants offense is yearning for explosive plays, because explosive plays put you on the other side of the 50. They put you in the red zone and they make you score points. So
We
that's
saw it
number
this
one.
week.
Besides, well, look at this week. Look at this week was a key example.
Yeah.
Whenever we did have a big play, we put points on the board. So,
Exactly. I mean, the touchdown was because of Ingram.
And a field goal.
The field goal was, was because of, the big play, the big play to Ingram. Yeah, big plays are what made us win the game.
And you're losing, and you're losing another 7 points because Darius Slayton had a ball go through his fingertips. Even though that drive we were driving and Ingram fumbled, but still, that's also a key point that when you have plays of 9, 10, 11, 12 plus play drives, somebody's bound to mess up eventually, whether it's an official throwing a flag for holding, whether if it's an offensive pass interference, whether if it's a sack, whether it's a turnover, somebody is bound to mess up eventually. That's why the sooner you can get in the end zone, the better. But with the Giants defense, even though the Giants offense is holding the ball at an above average rate, the Giants defense is still top 10 in the National Football League in the highest average time of possession per drive. So even though the Giants are holding the ball for a decent amount of time, the defense is still allowing little itty bitty chunk plays, and they're still allowing the chains to be moved. The Giants are a very good red zone defense because they're allowing field goals and not touchdowns, but that doesn't change the fact that they've had trouble getting off the field, and that has been a year-long problem. And also, doesn't matter how much time you give Russell Wilson to score. You can give him 15 minutes to score, or you can give him 2 minutes to score, or 30 seconds to score. Russell Wilson's going to find a way to score. So while I respect Liam's theory, and it's very well thought out, and I agree with it, it's just not the reality for the Giants in 2020.
We're mythbusters when it comes to Jason. Jason Garrett listens to our pods. And he's like, damn it, they hit on everything.
Damn it. All right, what else do we have?
We know Liam, Joe Judge listens, by the way.
Yes, we do. We have Liam voicemail, and we have Eric has 2 mailbag.
Let's skip the Eric Bradbury Metcalf question for the pregame. We're going to talk about that on Friday's show.
Perfect. Oh, we have 2 funny questions. 2 funny questions. Our first one is from Tauzino at Red Yeti 9. Can you remember where all the Talking Giants listeners are grateful to be Giants fans from around the world? And this is in reference to our Instagram stories, which absolutely just went off the rails from this long weekend that we had.
It was on Thanksgiving. I was just like, what are you freaking thankful for? And then you turned to some jokes, and then people are said I'm thankful to be from this country. And then it just turned into what country you in, and then
Giants
some people
fan in Brazil, Giants fan and blah blah blah. Giants
and I just started doing references Denmark. I did a picture of Mark McGuire in a lion's den. Someone said Kazakhstan. They were setting me up. Thank you for the softball. I did the Borat, Kazakhstan is the greatest country in the. That probably was the most shocking of Borat one. Was he got into that rodeo and saying that all other countries are little girls, and it literally made a horse fall over. That is why the first Borat was funny and the second Borat sucked. There was I really can't remember. There was a ton.
It's a blur. It was all a blur.
A couple were borderline offensive. It was fun.
We probably had about 50 Instagrams, probably even more. You know when you click onto an Instagram story and you have to go press. That was our story you had to press 75 times to get through everything.
It was fun. I was having fun with it.
Our last thing that we have is a voicemail from Patreon.
You missed Chris Eric Feldman's other mailbag question. We skipped the.
Oh crap! I got it. Better Call Gaul is a better nickname than Wayne Train. Discuss. I don't like how demanding that was, but we'll discuss it, Eric.
I don't think it is. I mean, it's clever, but
discuss.
What's more fun to say, Wayne Train or Better Call Gaul? Just Wayne Train. It's simple. You don't need to know a TV show. And Saquon called him Wayne Train on Good Morning Football today.
Better Call Saul is not a great show.
It's not. It's not.
Get into
I didn't watch the whole thing, and I was a big Breaking Bad fan.
Yes.
I only watched the first 7 episodes. And if you hit me with well, after that, it's good. It's if the first 7 episodes, why do I have to watch 8 episodes or something before it gets good? Yeah, I just didn't think it was a good show. Most spinoffs suck. Let's be real.
I agree. I'm glad we both agree on that. There's not a lot that we agree on. We live very different lives.
Hey, boys. It's Chris Mickle calling Sunday night, feeling good after the win. First place, NFC East. Just wanted to give you guys a shout out. Feeling a little sappy tonight about the Talking Giants community and just the Giants in general. So psyched to be number one. Hoping that Danny Dimes is back and ready to go for next week. My nephew wanted to say something too. Go ahead.
You Giants are, man. Think about how much happier Talking Giants is this year than it was this time last year. I mean, what week are we on?
12. No.
We're on week 13. That was, let's see, 17, 16, 15, 14. That was the Green Bay game.
Oh, yuck.
Everyone's
Jones
like, I'm not going to this game. I'm not
I
sitting
didn't
through
go.
Green Bay, filled, David went. Didn't David Powers go to that game?
David Powers went and he was miserable. I think we recorded after that game. That was the first game ever in my life where I had tickets and I was home in New Jersey. Or no, I was able to go home if I wanted to. And I just said, no, I was home in New Jersey because I think it was around Thanksgiving. And I just said, no, I'm not going. I refuse. I'm not sitting in that. That was the first game ever. I feel bad now that I'm saying it. I'm glad I didn't go. That would have been miserable.
Talking Giants has been fun this year, man. And I feel like we set some groundwork. And now it's starting to take off a little bit. I'm feeling good. I'm happy. I love our chats. I'm happy with where Talking Giants is at, man. Not complacent, trying to take over the whole damn world. Talking Giants versus the world. Did you put that in your email, by the way?
No, because I sent the email after I forwarded, or no, before I forwarded it to you. So you got it after I sent it.
Oh, well, Justin was sending a very serious email. I want to share what it was about.
It was.
But I was like, the only thing I would change is end it with Talking Giants versus the world.
Yeah, it was with some higher ups in the world. So, yeah.
Talking Giants versus the world, baby. How about that?
How about it? We will see you Friday.
Yeah, we got one bonus voicemail for Patreon. We just can't play it on the podcast.
Can't play it.
Too much.
It's not family friendly.
Too much cussing.
Not family friendly.
We appreciate you guys. Thank you. We're 30 ratings away from being the Top Giants podcast, which is kind of cool.
Wow.
We already are the Top Giants podcast, but we started like a year or two after behind people. We are number one, and it's all because of me. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
Usually people, let's be real. It's all me. No, I'm just kidding. Coach Tolbert said something. All right. I'm going to stop reading the chat. Thank you guys. Seriously. I can be a sarcastic douche sometimes. Thank you. We appreciate you guys. We'll be back on Friday. Until then, let's go Big Blue.